Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are previewing Week 3 of the NFL preseason right now with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. And Joe Duffy, his record and his analysis speak for themselves. 16-9 against the spread, covering 25 Week 1 and Week 2 preseason games so far with us. And, I have high hopes for his results in our videos covering all 16 games thus for Week 3. Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you, Peter. You know I have a blast with you.
Yeah, all right. Jacksonville and Detroit is the game we're going to cover right now. And the first game we analyzed, we were on the opposite sides in our analysis. I have an opinion on this one as well. We'll see if it lines up with what you think. But first, give a plug for OffshoreInsiders.com. Tell everyone who might be watching all these videos and finally is impressed with your obvious handicapping abilities that might want to sign up. Tell us all about OffshoreInsiders.com.
Yeah, no, that's the type of information you get when somebody's entire job is to pick winners. And I've been doing this. This is my 27th year full-time. Literally, this has been my full-time occupation, this and betting on my picks since 1988. And I've been handicapping and betting before that. Really goes back to my childhood, but that's another story altogether. But yeah, my picks, the home of Joe Duffy's picks, are OffshoreInsiders.com. By the way, we're 11-5 with premium plays in the preseason.
All right, Jacksonville, Detroit here. Detroit is a 3-point favorite. The total's 44.5, and I'm thinking about the over here. Both Matt Stafford has looked sharp for Detroit. Both quarterbacks, Henne and Bortles, have looked pretty good for Jacksonville. It is the Week 3, the quote unquote dress rehearsal. So the starter should be in for a while. We saw a lot of these Week 2 games go over. 44.5 is not a huge line for a total. And even though it is a preseason game, I'm thinking my initial thought is over 44.5. Would you agree with that, Joe Duffy?
I don't necessarily disagree with it, but my play here is actually going to be on the side. I'm actually going to lay the number again and go with Detroit minus the number. Remember, we had as our Thursday night game of the year a premium play in the preseason, and it was on Jacksonville against Chicago because it looked like Jacksonville was going to be playing their starters longer than most teams were that early in the preseason in the second game. And from all along, I was sky high on Blake Bortles, and seeing him matched up against Chicago's backups, I was salivating. Of course, Chicago scored a late touchdown to make it look close against the spread, but in reality, Jacksonville was clearly the right play all the way. But here's the interesting thing. Now Jacksonville wants Blake Bortles to play with the first team, so it actually looks like their top two quarterbacks will be in there shorter than they were in Week 2 to give Bortles a chance to play with the first team. But as well as Bortles has played and as high as I have been on him, this is going to be the first time that Bortles has ever faced a first-team defense, and that's a whole story altogether. Also, Detroit, all the trusted sources say Detroit is as deep at wide receiver as they've been in a very long time. Admittedly, I'm not necessarily a huge Matt Stafford fan, but this will truly be his year where they go about 5 deep as far as really stud receivers. Granted, Tate and Johnson, they're the two big guys, but they have several legitimate wide receivers there. I think Detroit should do very well against the second team and maybe even the third team defense of Jacksonville. And like I said, I think that the Jaguars really, last week against Chicago, they had made a little bit of a statement. I really think their starters will probably play slightly less this week than they did in Week 2. So I'm going to go with the chalk here.
There you go. Professional analysis. Makes a lot of sense to me. Detroit -3 it is. And so you think maybe the over is not a great play because Jacksonville's offense will now be up more against a top defense, and their offense is probably going to stall a little bit more than it has at times in the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, it is. And it is true, though, that for Detroit, Calvin Johnson, and I think the quote that Jim Caldwell used is they will unleash him this week. They've been using him sparingly so far, but it does look like the Calvin Johnson, who is possibly the best wide receiver in the NFL, certainly one of the top wide receivers. Andre Johnson, no relation. He might be as well, but they're clearly one of the top receivers. But also Ezekiel Anza is expected to play for Detroit. He had 6 sacks last year, and everybody says he is a star player on the rise, so I think that Detroit's going to have a very good pass rush. The whole McFarley thing, well, hopefully he is going to be a little bit extra motivated to prove. I think his benching had a lot to do with trying to motivate him, including in the preseason. He better show some motivation here. We know that Detroit's got a very solid defense, so no, I think the best play here is definitely the side.
Okay, I'm completely sold. Detroit -3 it is. Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Thanks so much.